They had the look, they had the charisma, they had the fans screaming their names every single night. They had everything it takes to be a world champion, except for one thing: the chance. Imagine pouring your blood, sweat, and soul into this business, only to watch lesser men pass you by. Imagine being told you were the future, only to realize the future was never coming. Today, we dive into the names that should have defined eras, the warriors, the icons, the heartbreak stories, Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, Bobby Lashley's forgotten early run, and more. These aren't just wrestlers, these are legends who were robbed of destiny. And by the end of this, you're gonna be shaking your head, furious, asking the same question every wrestling fan has screamed for decades: how in the world were they never world champion? Let's start with one of the most shocking names of all time, Mr. Perfect. When you look back at the late 1980s and early 1990s, few wrestlers embodied perfection the way Curt Hennig did. His nickname wasn't just a gimmick, it was reality. The man could wrestle any style, against any opponent, and make it look like poetry in motion. His promos dripped with cocky confidence, his in-ring work was crisp, technical, and smooth, and his character was universally respected. Fans believed in him, wrestlers respected him. Even Vince McMahon admired him. And yet, despite being one of the most naturally gifted superstars of his generation, Mr. Perfect never held the WWE Championship. Why? Some point to bad timing. Hulk Hogan was still the golden boy, Ultimate Warrior was being pushed as the next big superhero, and guys like Savage, Flair, and Bret Hart were anchoring the top of the card. Perfect was always just below that level. He was the guy who could make anyone look like $1 million, and that became his curse. He was the workhorse, the measuring stick, but never the guy management decided to put the company on. Injuries also played a role. His back problems cut his prime short, forcing him to step away at crucial moments when momentum was building. But let's be honest, if you put the title on Mr. Perfect in 1991 or 1992, no one would have questioned it. He had the credibility. He had Bobby the Brain Heenan in his corner. He had the crowd reactions. Everything was lined up. WWE just didn't pull the trigger, and so Mr. Perfect remains one of the greatest what-ifs in wrestling history. And speaking of wasted potential, let's talk about Ravishing Rick Rude. Now, this is a man who had it all. Look, charisma is one thing, but Rick Rude had charisma on steroids. The way he'd strut down to the ring, hips swiveling, insulting the crowd by calling the men fat and out of shape while showing off his chiseled body, it was genius heel work. He didn't just want heat, he thrived on it. And the women? They couldn't take their eyes off him. But here's the thing, Rick Rude wasn't just flash. He could go in the ring. He was athletic, strong, and technical. He had wars with Ultimate Warrior, Sting, and Ricky Steamboat that proved he was far more than just a talker with a great body.
Subscribe.
And yet, like Mr. Perfect, Rude was never given the chance to be the guy. Politics played a huge role here. In WWE, Hogan was untouchable, and Rude was seen as too heelish to ever get a serious run at the top belt. In WCW, injuries and disputes with management derailed his push. But make no mistake, Rick Rude had everything you'd want in a world champion. And honestly, his sudden passing at just 40 years old cemented his legacy as one of the most heartbreaking stories in wrestling. Because if anyone deserved that run, that validation of being the top guy, it was Ravishing Rick Rude. And then we shift to Bobby Lashley. Now I know what you're thinking. Bobby Lashley did eventually win world championships later in his career, but that early run in WWE, that was wasted potential in its purest form. When Lashley debuted in 2005, it felt like WWE was introducing their next Brock Lesnar. The guy looked like he was carved out of stone. He had the amateur wrestling background, the legit athletic pedigree, the dominance. And for a while, WWE booked him strong. He steamrolled opponents, captured the United States and ECW championships, and became a featured star on SmackDown. But here's the problem. WWE never pulled the trigger when it mattered most. He was always almost there. He challenged for the WWE Championship, but he never won it. He was put in big matches, but never booked as the guy. His WrestleMania 23 main event against Umaga in the Battle of the Billionaires should have been his coronation. Instead, it became all about Vince McMahon and Donald Trump, with Lashley just playing the background role. And after that, the momentum fizzled. Injuries, backstage politics, and poor creative decisions sent him packing from WWE altogether. Imagine if Lashley had won the WWE Championship in 2007, cementing himself as the new powerhouse of the Ruthless Aggression era. Instead, fans had to wait over a decade for his eventual coronation in 2021. By then, it was satisfying, yes, but it was also bittersweet. Because we know what could have been if WWE had capitalized when Lashley was young, fresh, and ready to carry the company. And finally, let's talk about one more name, Owen Hart. Now, this one hurts. Owen Hart had everything you'd want in a world champion and more. He had the technical skills passed down through the legendary Hart family. He had charisma, both as a cocky heel and as a sympathetic underdog. And he had the ability to connect with the fans in a way few others could. His feud with Bret Hart in 1994 was nothing short of legendary. Their WrestleMania 10 match is still considered one of the greatest opening matches in history. Owen had the chops. He had the credibility. He even won the King of the Ring in 1994, a title that historically launched future world champions like Austin, Triple H, and Brock Lesnar. But WWE never went all the way with Owen. He was always Bret's little brother in the eyes of management. He was used to elevate others, to make stars out of guys like Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then, tragically, his career and his life were cut short in 1999. Owen Hart should have been world champion, period. His death isn't just one of wrestling's greatest tragedies because of how it happened. It's also a tragedy because of what we lost, a future world champion who never got the chance to fulfill his destiny. When you look at these names, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, Bobby Lashley's early run, Owen Hart, it paints a painful picture. Wrestling isn't always fair. Talent doesn't always equal opportunity. Politics, timing, injuries, and creative decisions often dictate who rises to the top and who doesn't. And sometimes, the ones who should have been champions are left with nothing but what ifs. But here's the truth. Championships or not, these names are etched in wrestling history. They may not have had the belt, but they had the fans, they had the respect, they had the moments that made us cheer, boo, cry, and believe. And in the end, that's what makes them legends. Still, you can't help but wonder. Imagine a world where Mr. Perfect held the WWE Championship, where Rick Rude carried WCW on his back, where Bobby Lashley dominated the Ruthless Aggression era, where Owen Hart lived long enough to get his rightful coronation. Wrestling history would look very, very different. So, the next time someone tells you that championships define greatness, remember this list. Remember the wasted potential. And remember that sometimes the greatest champions are the ones who never held the gold.
I just dropped the elbow. Now you drop the like. Subscribe to join the crew.